Welcome to this deep dive into one of the most fearsome villains in fantasy history, Sauron. He goes by many titles: Lord of the Rings, Dark Lord, Lord of Darkness, and many more. But what is the true form of Sauron, and is he truly immortal? In this video, we'll unravel the dark origins, immense powers, and unsettling immortality of Sauron. Before we begin, if you're as fascinated by the deep lore of Middle-earth as we are, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more. Sauron was not always the embodiment of pure evil that many associate with him. To understand the depth of his malevolence, we must go back to the dawn of Middle-earth, when the world was still young and filled with beings of immense power. Sauron was one such being, a Maya, an angelic entity created by Eru Ilúvatar, the supreme deity of Tolkien's universe. The Maiar were lesser Ainur, spirits created to assist the Valar, the higher beings responsible for shaping and governing the world. Originally, Sauron was named Mairon, which means the admirable or the excellent, a reflection of his noble and virtuous beginnings. His early purpose was to assist in the design and crafting of the world, particularly under the Valar Aule, the smith and master of craft and creation. Sauron's talents in craftsmanship, order, and design were unparalleled among the Maiar. He was driven by a desire for perfection, a trait that would later become corrupted into a lust for control and dominance. Though he was originally good, Sauron was always fascinated by power and the notion of order, an obsession that would lead him down a dark path. His ambition drew the attention of Morgoth, the most powerful and malevolent of the Valar, who had fallen into evil and sought to dominate all of creation. Morgoth's rebellion against the Valar inspired Sauron, who saw in Morgoth the potential for the realization of his own ambitions. Sauron gradually turned away from the Valar and became Morgoth's most loyal and trusted lieutenant. Under Morgoth's influence, Sauron's vision of order became twisted. Instead of creating harmony through craft, he sought to impose his own will on the world by any means necessary. As Morgoth's right hand, Sauron played a pivotal role in the wars of the First Age, helping to corrupt the hearts of elves, men, and dwarves alike. His mastery of dark sorcery and deception became invaluable to Morgoth's cause. While Morgoth ruled through brute force and terror, Sauron preferred more subtle means: manipulation, cunning, and lies. Even after Morgoth was defeated at the end of the First Age, Sauron remained, determined to carry on his master's dark legacy. In many ways, Sauron became even more dangerous than Morgoth, because where Morgoth sought to destroy, Sauron sought to control. After Morgoth's defeat and banishment, Sauron went into hiding for a time, but his ambitions never waned. In the Second Age, he resurfaced, determined to bring all of Middle-earth under his rule. He saw that outright conquest would not be enough. He needed to be more cunning, to deceive the very peoples he wished to dominate. To achieve this, Sauron adopted a fair and benevolent form, presenting himself to the elves of Middle-earth as Annatar, the Lord of Gifts. He claimed to bring knowledge and enlightenment, and many of the elves, particularly those in the kingdom of Eregion, welcomed him. Among these elves was Celebrimbor, the greatest smith of his time, and the grandson of Feanor, the creator of the Silmarils. Sauron, in his guise as Annatar, offered to teach the elves the secrets of ring crafting, promising that these rings would grant their bearers great power and long life. Together with Celebrimbor and the other smiths of Eregion, Sauron helped create the Rings of Power, magical artifacts of immense strength. However, Sauron's true intentions were far darker. While the elves crafted their rings, Sauron secretly forged the One Ring in the fires of Mount Doom, imbuing it with a significant portion of his own power. The One Ring was the key to controlling the other rings, and by extension, their bearers. Through the One Ring, Sauron sought to enslave the minds of the elves, men, and dwarves who wore the rings of power. Sauron's plan was nearly successful, but the elves were not so easily deceived. Upon realizing Sauron's treachery, they removed their rings and hid them from his grasp. Enraged, Sauron waged war on the elves, seeking to recover the rings and consolidate his control over Middle-earth. Although he was able to capture some of the rings, especially those intended for dwarves and men, the elves kept their 3 rings hidden. These rings, Narya, Nenya, and Vilya, remained outside of Sauron's control, though he always sought them. While the elves proved resilient, Sauron found more success in corrupting men. He gave 9 rings to the leaders of men, who, unlike the elves, were far more susceptible to the promise of power and immortality. Over time, the men who bore these rings fell under Sauron's control, their wills utterly dominated by the One Ring. These 9 men became the Nazgul, or Ring Wraiths, Sauron's most fearsome servants. Their minds, bodies, and souls were completely enslaved by Sauron, and they became shadows of their former selves, neither truly alive nor dead. But Sauron's corruption of men did not end with the creation of the Nazgul. His most ambitious and destructive act of manipulation came in the form of his dealings with the kingdom of Numenor. Numenor was the greatest kingdom of men in the Second Age, a powerful island nation gifted to the men who had fought against Morgoth in the First Age. The Numenorians were strong, wise, and long-lived, but they also had a fatal flaw: their fear of death. Sauron, seeing an opportunity, allowed himself to be captured by the Numenorians, knowing that he could corrupt them from within. Once in Numenor, Sauron quickly rose to a position of influence, whispering lies and stoking the Numenorians' fear of mortality. He convinced their king Ar-Pharazôn that the Valar had denied them immortality out of jealousy, and that by defying the Valar, they could claim eternal life. Under Sauron's influence, Numenor turned away from its ancient friendship with the elves and the Valar, and became a brutal expansionist empire. Sauron even convinced the Numenorians to worship Morgoth as a god, performing human sacrifices in his name. This manipulation culminated in the greatest disaster of the Second Age, the destruction of Numenor. Ar-Pharazôn, at Sauron's urging, launched an invasion of Valinor, the realm of the gods, in a bid to claim immortality. In response, Eru Ilúvatar, the creator of the universe, intervened directly, sinking Numenor beneath the waves and reshaping the world. Sauron's physical body was destroyed in this cataclysm, but his spirit endured, and he returned to Middle-earth, more determined than ever to dominate the world. Sauron's abilities were vast and terrifying, a testament to his status as one of the most powerful beings in Middle-earth. One of his most distinctive traits was his ability to change forms. Early in his existence, Sauron could assume many shapes, both beautiful and monstrous. He often appeared in a fair and alluring form when he wished to deceive others, as he did with the elves of Eregion and the men of Numenor. However, after the destruction of Numenor, Sauron lost his ability to take on a fair appearance. From that point on, he was bound to a dark and terrible form, reflecting the corruption of his spirit. Sauron's connection to the One Ring is perhaps his most defining characteristic. When he forged the ring, he infused it with much of his power, effectively tying his fate to the ring. The One Ring amplified Sauron's already immense abilities, allowing him to control the other rings of power and extend his influence across Middle-earth. However, this also made Sauron vulnerable. As long as the ring existed, Sauron's power would endure. But if the ring were destroyed, Sauron would be severely weakened, perhaps beyond recovery. In addition to his shape-shifting and connection to the ring, Sauron possessed other dark powers. He was a master of necromancy, earning the title the Necromancer during the events of The Hobbit. He could command the spirits of the dead, bend the wills of living beings to his own, and project his influence across great distances. His mastery of fear and domination was unparalleled, and even without a physical form, Sauron's presence was enough to cow many into submission. A powerful symbol of Sauron's dominion is the Eye of Sauron, an image made famous in the Lord of the Rings films. The eye represents Sauron's vigilance, his ceaseless search for the One Ring, and his oppressive presence over Middle-earth. Though the eye itself is a cinematic interpretation, it effectively captures the psychological fear Sauron inspires. In the books, Sauron is not merely an eye, but an ever-watchful force, one whose influence reaches every corner of the land. His very name evokes dread, a reminder that his shadow looms over all who oppose him. Sauron's power, however, was not wielded alone. Throughout his long history, he had many servants who carried out his will. Among the most notable of these is the Mouth of Sauron, his dark lieutenant and ambassador. The Mouth of Sauron was once a man, but he became so corrupted by Sauron's influence that he forgot his own name and identity, living only to serve his master. The Mouth spoke on Sauron's behalf, spreading fear and intimidation wherever he went. Another group of Sauron's key servants were the Nazgûl, the 9 kings of men who had fallen under the control of the One Ring. These ring-wraiths were Sauron's most feared enforcers, bound to him through the rings of power and utterly loyal to his cause. Neither alive nor dead, the Nazgûl were immortal, and they carried out Sauron's orders without question. Their mere presence on the battlefield was enough to strike terror into the hearts of men and elves alike. Despite his immense power, Sauron was not invincible. Like all the Maiar, Sauron was immortal in the sense that his spirit could not be destroyed. However, his physical form could be slain, and his connection to the One Ring made him vulnerable. When the ring was destroyed at the end of the Third Age, Sauron lost the ability to ever take physical form again. While his spirit persisted, it was so weakened that he could no longer exert any significant influence over Middle-earth. Thus, while Sauron is, in a sense, immortal, his power is limited by his dependency on the One Ring. Without it, he is a shadow of his former self, a disembodied evil spirit rather than the terrifying Dark Lord who once threatened all of Middle-earth. In conclusion, Sauron is the embodiment of dark ambition, mastery of deception, and overwhelming power. His story spans millennia, from his beginnings as a servant of Morgoth to his near conquest of Middle-earth. While he may no longer have a physical form, his presence lingers, a reminder of the devastating consequences of unchecked ambition and lust for power. And before we wrap up, let me leave you with this question. Is Sauron the greatest Dark Lord in all of fiction? Or does another villain, perhaps like Voldemort, pose a greater threat? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the world of fantasy and lore.